Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our EDC coffee chat. This morning, we have Sally Rodgers on with us from the Pet Emergency Group, and I'll let you introduce some of the other people that are part of your team. We're really excited about your work and the intention behind it. And so just a few housekeeping details, if you wouldn't mind putting yourself on mute so we don't inadvertently pick up any background noises like puppies barking and the like, since I'm sure the majority of us have pets that we love. And so I'd love to have you guys, just so that we have this saved, put in the chat if you have a pet and what their name is. And so go ahead and do that. But then also, if you have questions or recommendations for Sally, please go ahead and either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can put your question in the chat and we can ask it for you, whichever you prefer. So with that, Sally, I will let you take it away. And I know you have some slides, so
thank you. I was just typing in the names of my pets.
Awesome. Very good. It's very important, right?
Right. And I'm just glancing here at some of the names and the corgis. Well, thank you again for having me. Our group is very grateful to be on here today and to share a little bit about what we're up to. So I do have a bit of a slideshow, but I want to make sure I leave time for questions and answers. I know people have a lot of questions around this, so I'll get started. I'm going to introduce our board members during the presentation because I have a slide with pictures. But my name is Sally Rodgers, and I live in Agnew. And I grew up in Iowa and raised my children in Iowa, in a small town, almost exactly the same size as Sequim, Atlantic, Iowa. And I was a healthcare, retired now, except I got really involved in this effort. So I wouldn't say I was retired, but retired from my job, most recently in Portland. And I've been in healthcare for a long, long time, healthcare administrative work. So hoping to apply some of that or leverage some of those skills with what we're doing here, but we'll see. Let me share my screen and get this slideshow started, hopefully.
Great.
You got it?
Perfect. Yep.
Yay. Okay, so the name of our group is Pet Emergency Group for the Olympic Peninsula, and as I go through the slides, you'll see why we named it and put in there for the Olympic Peninsula. What I'd like to try and share today is just information about our pet population and the resources, a description of the problem we're trying to solve, who we are and what is our mission, and sort of concentrate on what we've done and where we're going. So regarding the pet population, about 63% of Washington households own a companion pet. I've always felt like that figure is really higher out here. I don't think I know anybody that doesn't have a companion pet. And I finally found a study that said that cat ownership is high too, but dog ownership is 20% higher in rural areas than in urban areas. And that made a lot of sense to me because I do feel like we have, I would guess around 80% or so people owning companion animals. Estimate is that we have over 50,000 dogs and cats in Jefferson and Clallam counties. Pet ownership has increased 20% since 1988, and it just keeps rising. And as you all know, it rose again, probably at a higher rate during COVID. And that just corresponds with the amount of spending on animal care continues to rise as well. What I didn't know when I moved here was that there are no after hours pet emergency services on the Olympic Peninsula. We have We have great vet services. We have probably 16 maybe vet practices between Jefferson and Clallam counties, but they do not operate after 5, and they do not operate on the weekends. And they used to do a rotation years ago, and that rotation, just for a variety of reasons, sort of fizzled out. I think fewer and fewer vets were participating, and so that is not something that they have now. And we're also finding that getting emergency care or urgent care during the day, if you have an issue that comes up suddenly, you don't have an appointment schedule, but you have a need, that's also challenging. So people are getting referred. The closest emergency facility is in Poulsbo. And while distance may not be, a huge barrier, the times that you can find a closed bridge, if you're in that situation, is just a huge problem, because if you have to go all the way around and back up, that is very time consuming. And it's also just pretty time consuming for people on the west side, of course, of Port Angeles to get there. So we also have capacity issues at all the emergency clinics in the region. So people are getting across the bridge and finding out they can't be seen, and they have to go to yet another emergency facility. So that's happening regularly. I just have a couple of headlines here of news announcements regarding long wait times, burnout vets, burnout staff, and our vets are just really, really busy. So it's the statistics I've been able to find show that 1 in 3 pets needs emergency care every year. And this is a story that's been tweaked a little, but not much. And it's a very common story. Unfortunately, I found my cat crying in a way I'd never heard before. I ran to check on her. She was having seizures. I knew I had to get her to the vet, but it was 6 p.m. and the only emergency clinic was in Poulsbo. The roads were icy, and I heard there was an accident on the bridge. What if I can't get across? What do I do then? And it's a real panic situation when that happens. And talk a little bit more about this, but our pets are family. When illness strikes, they deserve access to quality emergency care. Colleen, if you would show that video now.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do a stop participant sharing briefly, and then I will go to this one and share, and hopefully when this comes up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go see him. Go see him.
Can you hear the volume? Yes? Okay.
Go see him.
Here we go.
Thank you. So let me get back to my slides here. Emotional toll of no after hours emergency vet care is very real. And I think, what I wanted everybody to see from that slide is over 95% of Americans consider their pets family members. And they really do. And, the psychological bond is very strong. It's a clear source of, why does that man get out of bed every day? It's to take that walk and pet that dog. So it provides a chain of wellness for the elderly, unconditional love, giving older people a focus, someone to share their days. So the lack of emergency care, it's like having no emergency care for your child or your parent. So we decided to try and do something about the problem. So I would describe us as a dedicated group of pet advocates and volunteers, and we're all volunteers who seek to help build, grow, and sustain access to after-hours emergency pet care for the Olympic Peninsula. We formed a nonprofit organization in late winter of 2020, and are just trying to grow our group of active members. Here's just a slide of our board of directors. There's 5 of us, myself, Susan Meldal, Beth Terrell, Steve Carpenter, and Don Brown. And I think Dawn is on the call. Dawn, you want
Hi, this is Don Brown. Sally, I don't think your screen is being shared, by the way. I can't see it.
You can't?
No.
Have you not seen it the whole time?
I saw it before the video, and there's
Okay.
someone else that says they can't see it either. So I just thought I'd share
fine.
that a little bit.
Let me see if I can just restart it.
Yeah, I don't think it's showing right now. And if you have a problem, I can try
Okay.
to.
Well, let me quick, it shouldn't take long. Let me see if I
Okay.
can't escape out and close it and just try again quick.
Okay. There we go. Now we're seeing something
Okay, good.
that,
Let me see if that doesn't open. That slideshow. Is that better?
no, we're seeing all of your files.
Oh, I'm not. Do you want to try and pull it up?
All right, I will do that for you here.
Thanks, Don, for letting me know that.
Sorry about that.
Okay, 1 second here. No, it was here, so this share screen here and there. Okay, and you were about on this
I was on
slide?
one more.
One more.
Oh, 2.
There we go.
Thank you. Everybody good?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, Don. Thank you. Don, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Don Brown. I am serving as the treasurer for this awesome organization. Sally is leading the charge. I've lived in Clallam County since 2015, and I myself have made at least one trip with my dog to the emergency vet. So it just is something that we really need out here. So thanks for your support.
Thank you. Susan is has been with Microsoft for the last 20 years, and she has over 30 years of experience in engineering program management. Beth is our attorney and is the founding member of Terrell Marshall Law Group in Seattle. She has a farm, a little wheat farm out here, and spends a lot of time out here with her dogs. And Steve is our secretary, and he has been in telecommunications project manager, lives out here in not too far from me with his 2 dogs. So that's our group. Okay. Next slide.
Okay, sorry. I'm just listening. Sorry about that.
No worries. And that's our mission, to help, I'll just repeat it, to help build, grow, and sustain access to after-hours emergency pet care on the Olympic Peninsula. Okay. This is sort of our progress to date, and I'm going to go through some of these in a little more detail, but we have established a 501c3 under the fiscal sponsorship of Olympic View Community Foundation. We are pursuing our own, but they took us under their wing and have been super supportive in getting us started and helping us with finding resources and connections. We developed a pretty comprehensive website to provide current information on resources, report our progress. We have our annual report out there, but a lot of it is just providing information and resources about emergencies, where to go, how to prevent emergencies, pet first aid classes. We gathered market data and intelligence from the local veterinarians. We did that through a written survey right after we got started, working to eliminate barriers that were cited on that survey for reasons why they're not pursuing, or just can't have after hours available. And one of those barriers was staffing. So we've reached out to the Peninsula College about potentially starting a licensed vet tech program out here. And we've also talked to the high school because they do provide animal science classes, and they're really interested. So we feel like that's an awesome career path for our younger people who are looking at what they're going to do after high school. We've really spent a lot of the year conducting research on models of aftercare pet emergency services, trying to figure out what would be a good fit for the Olympic Peninsula. And we've also spent a lot of time developing partnerships and collaborations. I had a meeting with Colleen's group maybe 6 or 7 months ago now, and she's connected me to people. We know it's gonna take a lot of community support to do this. So those collaborations and partnerships are so critical for us, and we really appreciate it. We have engaged a nonprofit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this too. Emergency Vet Clinic to consult with us and they're willing to do that on a voluntary basis to help guide us. And we have formulated a business plan and are beginning active fundraising. Okay. Our website, I sort of went through this, but it has our mission and strategies. It has our 2023 strategic plan, pet resources, current issues in the industry, just trying to educate about, the status of, there's a lot of vet shortages in this country. So, and vet burnout. So just trying to be sensitive about that and post current issues. It has our events out there, and we try and keep people informed of our progress. And we do a Zoom meeting every month for any volunteer or anybody who wants to join us to talk about what we're doing and what we did that month. So, and there's our website. If you haven't seen it, love for you to go out and take a look at it. Okay. Other efforts to raise awareness. I mentioned the Zoom meeting where we just started this last year toward the end of the year attending local events. So we did go a couple of times to the Sequim Farmers Markets. We were out at the Port Angeles Market. The big one for us was we were there 4 days at the Clallam County Fair. And we got a lot of, we just met a lot of people. And I think we're really able to raise a lot of awareness. People don't necessarily know about the problem. If they haven't needed it and their neighbor hasn't needed it, they don't know it doesn't exist. So, and we have a Facebook page that we try and keep active on. And there's a link to that. Okay. That's a list of events we're going to try and attend in 2023. Farmers markets again are always a great way to meet people. We just did get accepted into the irrigation festival, so we're trying to figure out whether we'll be in the parade or just have a booth or both. So that's the list of things. I did attend the Hurricane Bridge Dog Show last year, but and we were on out at the Pet Day. So we'd really like to sponsor our own first annual fundraiser this year. We'll see if we can get that going, and planning to have a fundraising retreat. That's all new, certainly new to me. Fundraising has not been in my wheelhouse. I've managed grants, but I wasn't the one that went out and got them. So that's a real specialty. So still looking for people to help us with the fundraising piece. Next slide. Here's the research we did on sustainable business models. We sort of just tried to assess the need and financial feasibility. Will this even work? Will it be successful? Is there enough volume? And we looked at a lot of data and trends and completed a financial analysis. One of the consultants I mentioned is going to voluntarily go through the financial analysis we completed and poke holes in it for us and make sure that we're on the right track. We conducted interviews with pet emergency corporations. We talked to several for-profit pet emergency corporations. We we've talked to some nonprofit pet emergency facilities. We're trying to continually evaluate the needs of pet owners. And what we hear is we need to focus on affordability, sustainability, and urgent needs. And that is just sort of a theme that keeps coming up. And I mentioned the nonprofit pet emergency care facilities that are helping guide our efforts. So after all that research, basically, what we found out is, we're going to have to start something. It's not going to just, it's not going to be provided by the groups that are here. We have a meeting with Mission Animal Group. They're out of Eden Prairie, Minnesota on Friday. They're presenting to us because they have a plan to start replicating themselves in there's not a lot of nonprofit vet emergency facilities, and they've done it successfully, really successfully. And they're looking for affiliates. So that's something we're going to talk to them about on Friday. But if that's not something that works out, we understand that this is an incredibly complex problem, and it's going to not be easy to solve. It will take substantial community support and resources, but we think those resources are out there. People are very interested in trying to help solve the problem. We're reaching out to a lot of local businesses, government agencies, all the rescues. They're all willing to assist. They're all really, pleased that we're working on the problem. And so we'll see where we can take this. I think I might have one more slide, maybe. Next steps. Continuing to reach out to find either local donors, a group like Mission Animal Group, or national investors that share our vision and our community values. And I would say that given what we've seen of the corporatization that's happening in the vet world, it's just doing what the human world did 20 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm not sure that the corporations always share our vision and our community values. And I really think that the nonprofit avenue may be the way to go, that would best serve what people are looking for out here. We'll see. And we need to secure startup funding, recruit a medical director, identify a facility, and we have to recruit those veterinarians, which is going to be hard. It's going to be really hard, but I absolutely believe that we can find them, that if we have the right mission, we have the right support, whether that's through Mission Animal Group or we start our own, that we'll be able to recruit. It's an area that people want to move to. And, there's barriers just like there is in recruiting for everybody probably on this phone call, but I think we can do it. So those are our next steps. I think, this would be a new venture addressing a really urgent need and a demand, and we're making progress. And we just want to express a lot of gratitude to those organizations and institutions that have already stepped up to help us. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Great. Let's see. I know there were a couple questions in here. Let's see, one from Rebecca. Rebecca, do you want to ask, or I have one if okay, go ahead, Rebecca.
I guess I don't know a lot about the corporatization of veterinary clinics, whether or not it would affect us out here or your program, but was just kind of wondering about your thoughts on what's happening in that industry.
Okay. There's a lot of national information about this, but it's definitely, it's increasing, and it's projected to continue to increase. And, the older vets are retiring, they're selling their practices. There's in the emergency world, there's probably always been more corporatization than not in the 24-hour, especially in the 24-hour wheelhouse. It's happening out here. Probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I know of 6 practices that have sold to corporations. So it's happening. I mean, I think you have the right corporation, the right amount of local control. It can work well. We'll see what happens, but in the emergency world, and a lot of my daughter happens to be a vet, happened to work in one. I will just share, sort of have a personal bias not to do that, because I think it would be very, very helpful if we have, a local investors, if we can find them. I think that would be the better way to go if we can find them, and we'll see. But again, we want to focus on sustainability. We don't want to start something small that just has one vet. It won't work. I mean, to do after hours, we're going to have multiple veterinarians involved. We're going to have a commitment of vets who enjoy doing emergency care. It's just like humans, right? That's not for everybody. So we have to find the right mix there. But I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Dale, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. I know these services are very expensive. I've talked to Steve a little bit about it, who's on your board. If we could find people to staff an ER clinic, could you talk a little bit about the economics of these clinics and what types of community subsidies are needed to break even?
Yeah, that's really the nonprofit angle is something we've really started actively pursuing in the last few months. I'll know a lot more about this. What I've heard from Mission Animal Group is they have 16 now. They're outside of Minneapolis. They have a huge population to serve. They have 16 vets, 2 or 3 of which are surgeons. They see 25,000 visits a year. They do have a sliding fee schedule. The nonprofit in Portland does not. They offer financial assistance. They have a program to offer financial assistance to people in emergency needs. But Mission Animal actually has a sliding fee schedule. So to do that, to have the equipment they need, and it's really mostly the equipment. You can have a relatively small facility. You just, need to be able to get the animals in and out safely. But, and they said, they have to fundraise to the tune of about $500,000 every year to do what they do. I don't know that we would be on that scale out here. We wouldn't have that volume. We wouldn't have to have, however, you do have to have the equipment. So, but I also believe there's ways to get used equipment that works really well. I mean, I just think you have to be really creative about how you equip it, how you staff it. I do think you can use volunteers to some degree in a staffing model, but not, not a lot. I mean, it's a pretty serious business to take care of an animal that's in an emergency situation, and you have to have highly trained people. You just can't get around that. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. I do have a quick follow-up question. I know that I heard a really interesting program on public radio about depression and anxiety with vets, and how, like many doctors, they don't really talk about it much. And the suicide rate for vets is 2 to 3 times higher than the general population. I'm wondering if you've had any conversations with vets in our area, and whether there's any correlation with them not wanting to do emergency care and the stress and mental health concerns that they have just keeping their practices going.
It's absolutely a problem, and it's a national problem. It is something that I would say yes. As and I would classify it with the interviews that we've done, with the conversations we've had, and with the written survey. That was not a question that was asked, but they cite burnout absolutely as one of the issues. They're very, very busy. It's an emotionally challenging job. There's no question about that. And I think that the AVMA, which is their national organization, is really trying to provide more resources for them. So certainly, just like mental health issues in the community, that, we need to make sure that they can access the resources they need. Dove Lewis has a program for, basically resilience and and providing them help if they need it. And I think as a community, we can do things to help them as well. I mean, I heard one of them say that, you know, people were stressed during COVID, and they had to completely change all their practice and how they did everything. That was stressful for them. It was stressful for their clients, still is. And so I think the clients got pretty rude, you know, on occasion. And I just think that's something that we can be sensitive to. I think we need to be grateful for what they do, and they work hard. And you know, I understand that all the, you know, the other big thing that they lacked when they were doing the rotation is infrastructure. They just went in, they just got it when it was their turn to take call. They went into their office alone, and you know, it was that was an issue in the middle of the night. There were security issues. They didn't have anybody to go with them. They couldn't really afford to pay to have staff, right? And or one of them told me, if I asked my staff to work a Saturday morning, they would just quit. They would just go on to the next one, you know. So staffing was barriers, infrastructure. So those are the problems we're going to have to solve, you know, if we're able to offer service here.
So Sally, couple things on the financial side of it. So I'm going to list a couple questions, and maybe you can describe what you're thinking. So if you had all the employees you needed and ready to go, are you thinking you would locate at an existing vet facility so you don't have to, that you would lease, and so you don't have those additional capital startup costs? And then also, how much is that? How much is the capital that you need to get going? And then how much is your expected budgeted expenses on an annual or monthly basis? And do you think people would pay for that? Or do you think there would have to be some subsidies to keep it going?
A lot of complex questions there. I think let me start with the facility. So the facility is really going to depend on what after hours looks like. What is the model? If it's 24-hour care only if it's 24-hour care on the weekends and only at nights on the weekdays, we could potentially look at leasing a facility. If it's 24 hours, clearly not. We'd have to have our own facility, you know, if it's a 24-hour service all the time. There's a lot of these facilities, including Mission Animal Group, that run, they run all day into the evening, and they run all day into the evening on weekends. And they're not 24 hours. It's really hard to run a 24-hour operation, to get the staff and the vets that work and after hours only, that only work after hours. You know, that's gonna be a tough one to staff. So I feel like we're gonna need to start small and grow as we see what the needs are. And meaning 80%, this is the figure I've been quoted, 80% of emergencies tend to happen before, you know, they're not usually in the middle. They definitely happen in the middle of the night, but you can take care of 80% of the problems by being open into the evening, you know, maybe 9, 10 o'clock. It's just not, it has to be a pretty serious seizure or accident, you know, to wake up and need to get to somewhere immediately in the middle of the night. It happens, no question about that. But if we could take care of 80% of the problems, you know, not starting with that, which will be really hard to staff, I think that might be the way to start. And if we do, and we know that there's problems during the day. We know there's problems with people getting into the vet during the day for emergency cases. So, and urgent cases, they're just very busy. So if we end up with that, we'll need a facility. And certainly if we have to either lease, renovate, or build a facility, that's going to add to the cost. I think if we did an urgent, you know, probably I would say between 2.5 and 3.5 million. is what we would need for startup if we're going to do our own facility. And but truly, besides that, its cost is labor, and it's going to depend on how many hours we're staffing, right? Because that's going to affect how many vets we need and how many licensed staff and vet assistants we need. And so it's really going to be dictated by the model. So I don't want it to all be evasive, but it's going to depend on that. But I would say I can easily look at needing to raise $3 million, which would be for a couple of years startup as well, right? Because it'll take it some time to be able to have a sustainable model. It's not going to happen the first year. When we did a financial analysis, it looks like it did that in the second year. To answer your question, I hate to see the insurance world really take over the vet business as well, but it's out there. People have pet insurance. People can and do pay for emergency care here. I mean, they go to Poulsbo, they go to Gig Harbor, they go to Tacoma, and they pay. You also hear really sad stories of people that are quoted $2,000 up front and can't do it, and they have to euthanize. So how do we find that balance? I don't know yet. But that's the affordability piece. That's where I'd like, every family deserves a pet. Every pet deserves a family and deserves care. And I don't want to get into a situation where only people that have a lot of money can afford to get, an emergency case taken care of. But that's hard. It's really hard to sustain that. It's expensive. It's just like walking into a human ER in terms of the extra, the radiology they need, anesthesia they need if they're going to do surgery. So, but I think, I just think that's a focus. We have to focus on affordability. We have to focus on finding ways to make it less expensive when we build it. However we can do that. And there's, there's financial assistance programs out there right now, and I'd love to see us, grow some of our own. So I think that's why I keep veering back a little bit to the nonprofit way, that we're not out there paying a corporation 20% overhead or whatever the figure is, that we can put that money back into financial assistance programs or back into the facility at a minimum.
Mm-hmm. Great. So there was a question from Patricia.
Yes, I am wondering if you have perhaps discussed partnering with someone like WAG, who's a nonprofit, also has land and event that you might be able to use and facilities without spending all that money. And they also have a need for vet care. So it seems like a win-win for both.
Yeah, I've toured WAG. Judy, one of their board members, has been very gracious and talking with us and giving us tours. And I've talked to the woman that runs the facility basically all day, every day, lives out there. So, I think the answer is yes, we would talk to all the rescues about opportunities for partnership. I don't know. I don't know I didn't go specifically down that road with them at this point, but I'll talk to all the rescues about land. And I think, Patricia, to your point, I think those are the kind of collaborations and partnerships we can find that will help minimize the expense. I appreciate you saying that, bringing that up.
So Carol, you put a couple really good comments in the chat. Do you want to share your thoughts?
Sure. Hi, I worked for Washington State University Foundation for many, many years, and just want to share the vet college there does do some strategic partnerships across the state, and they use the WSU extension if we have that in Jefferson and Clallam.
We do.
Okay, and they've been doing some legislative agendas too. Someone close to them is Marty Richardson. She's a retired Microsoft social venture partner leader and has taken over the Donny Clinic in downtown Seattle and has some best practices as well that may be interesting. Just some different people out there that may be helpful.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I've been wanting to find some connections to the college.
Absolutely.
for sure.
I'll put my email in your chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have you met with Clea Rome from the Wazoo Extension Center yet, Sally? I just put her email in the chat there for you. She's at Colleen County.
Awesome. I have not. Hey, Dawn, could you write these down? I'll also.
I'll make sure they get to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I
For some
got this,
reason,
Sally.
I'm having trouble with my chat finding these. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, Clea might be a great resource. Go ahead, Carol.
Sorry, I wanted just to raise my hand on something else. I do come from a pretty significant background in philanthropy, and Sally, I'd be willing to spend a half an hour with you just talking through the donor strategy for the larger, more complex giving you may be looking for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, just a little bit of time. I'll be there Friday as well for the EDC gala if you want me to come in early.
Okay, let me check that out.
Okay.
That would
I
be
have
great.
some ideas of some investors, philanthropists in the region that are looking at systemic change for this type of work. And they are focused on Gig Harbor and the Kitsap Peninsula now, but they understand the need is great. Yeah,
awesome.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome. It would be so wonderful to find partners that are interested in some of that. It's a little bit different model of care. And I think, again, I think that's the creativity that can go along with this can go a long ways. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thanks, Colleen. Thank
you, Carol. And Dale has his hand up. Dale?
Yes, I wanted to just toss out one more idea that you may have thought about. I get my primary care from a clinic here in Sequim that has a direct primary care model where on top of my insurance, I pay a monthly fee to get access. And so if you had 1,250 people in the two counties who paid $20 a month as both sort of a contribution and a support for the program, that would give you $300,000 a year. If it was 2,500 people at $10 a month. So I believe that there's people that would be willing, that you could create a direct veterinary care clinic model as a way to support that on a monthly subscription basis. And I think you'd get a lot of uptake.
Thank you. I love that idea. And we've tossed it around, so like I pay $60 a year for Life Flight, right? The ability to have access to Life Flight. So we have talked about that. I really appreciate that comment.
Also, I want to make sure you have talked to Sharon Ann Hamilton. Sharon Ann is on with us. She is our local Washington State Small Business SBDC Development Center.
Yes.
And so she is available, and her background, we're going to have her on a coffee chat soon so she can share more about what she offers and her background. But go ahead, Sharon Ann.
I'm happy to be of service and connecting and resources in any way that I can. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
We're also looking, I'm looking to add to the board too. I just throw that out there. I'd like to get maybe a few more members, maybe somebody that has more of the fundraising, background than anybody in our group currently does, as well as a vet. So I'm talking to them. It's going to be really important that we have some vet guidance on all this. So.
Great. Well, it seems, we did some analysis back in 2019 on what the wealth is in our two counties, talking to our financial advisors like the DA Davidsons and Morgan Stanley's, and then also looked at the amount of property that was owned locally and and then, removed out what was in a deed of trust and that kind of thing. And there's about $5.5 billion worth of wealth between Jefferson and Clallam counties. The further west you go, the less there is. But that being said, you got to figure a lot of those people that have that wealth have pets that, and they would be of the older population generally that have all the wealth, and they think of their pets as family, and they would invest in this. So I would think that there's potentially a good business model to, if you can tap into them and market to them. And it would seem that if you can get existing vets on board to share that information with their clients, then that would be a fairly direct method of communication.
Right. Appreciate that. Well, I was asked that question, Colleen. So that's so helpful to have that some information to give back to the Mission Animal Group when they present to us, because they asked that question. Does your area have the ability to do some sustainable fundraising here? So
yeah, we have a lot of wealth, and then we have a lot of poverty. And typically the people with wealth have invested in the stock market and that kind of thing, and they're not interested in investing locally. That's a much different, you're either used to investing in real estate or you're used to investing in Apple. And to get people to convert, we found is really a challenge. We have this Emerald Coast Opportunity Zone, and that people with wealth could invest right in their own community. And there's been very little uptake in that. So, and just because it's if you're not used to it, it's risk, and managing things locally is a lot more work than just having your financial advisor handle it. And, they just give you reports and recommendations. So Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, on that note, maybe this is for another topic, but you're talking about the investment of private equity dollars and assets that are non-cash through maybe a social impact fund. It sounds like there's another way to do this, and that's through the philanthropic model. And I put in chat an example of, in Kitsap and also in Pierce, there's an initiative called Leave 10. And basically we can, and I can go over this with Sally as well, but for example, if someone has a private equity in or a low cost basis with some assets, they can donate with those assets through a community foundation if Sally's organization doesn't have the ability to do so. But we're doing it successfully here in the region, and it's by storytelling as well, and sharing an example, right, of someone that's doing it successfully. So just an idea, if that's useful.
Yeah, thank you. The nonprofit in Portland started with a legacy gift from a woman by the name of Dove Lewis. That was back in 1960. So I think it can, I think those kinds of things they're possibilities. I think there's real possibilities for sure. But it's
and I
really
just want
nice
to make
get that feedback from you.
I just want to make one other comment. The strategy really is working with the financial advisors and informing them how to work with their clients, because that's where the conversation can hit the road fastest.
Yes.
What we found with the Emerald Coast Opportunity Zone, working with the financial advisors, is that if it is taken out of their portfolio that they manage, they were not very supportive of saying, yes, take it out of what I would be, managing, thus my revenues, and put it into a, another vehicle. We only had one entity that was interested in working in that space. Yeah. And Rebecca had a great comment and she handled, I'll let you speak.
I don't have to, but I will.
Okay.
No, so I as the, former development director at Peninsula Behavioral Health, and also being in that nonprofit world, that, so many people come to SQUIM. And the organizations that do really well with fundraising are things like Boys and Girls Club, the Humane Society, because they have national recognition. And so when people come here, and the food banks, you know, everybody wants to give to a food bank. But I think that PEG has a really good standing because so many people are going to have that connection automatically. So it's unfortunate that we don't have more people that, you know, do give to local charities. But I think this one has a great shot, and I am terrified that we don't have an emergency vet out here.
Yeah.
So hurry up, people, come on.
And yeah, Sheila had a great point in there, that from Olympic View Community Foundation, that right now to donate to the pet emergency group, you can donate through OVCF.
Right. And Sheila, I mentioned that at the beginning too, but good reminder. And again, thank you for sponsoring us and helping us get started.
Mm-hmm. But I think, you know, what's in it for me is so important when people think about how they're going to give for their in their charitable giving. And so and frequently, if now with the tax law changes, if they don't have a mortgage as an example, and they're just doing the standard deductions, there's not the tax advantage any longer for a lot of people to donate. But again, what's in it for me, if they have a pet and this is worrisome for them, they're much more likely to donate.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we've, you know, really focused on and just trying to raise the awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, does anybody have any further questions? And Sally, did you put your email in the chat so folks could contact you?
So we have info. We have one that goes to our the pet emergency group. I'm going to put that one, but mine as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, and how many vets did you say you would need to get this started up that would be willing to work?
You know, again, it depends on that model.
Yeah.
So it's on that model. I don't think we could even do, you know, even if we didn't go to 24 hours, I'd say still a minimum of 4. I think Mission Animal Hospital would tell me it would be more than that, but I also don't think they're as aware of what our volume would be.
Yeah.
And it's different, you know, doing a 12-hour shift when you just saw 500 animals, I'm exaggerating, but as opposed to 10, right? So,
right. Okay. Yeah, and it seems like at least just getting it started up and something to 9 p.m. is better than nothing.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever that more minimized model might be.
Right. Yes, I totally agree.
Okay, well, so this recording will be up on our website, clallam.org, by the end of the day, and we'll also put up the slides for you. So if you wanted to click on any of the links that Sally presented, you'll be able to do that. And any last words there, Sally, that you want to share?
I don't think so. I mentioned growing the board a little bit. I mentioned, yeah, I just really appreciate everybody's suggestions on how to, you know, other contacts I can make. That's so important, and it's what I'm spending most of my time doing. So if you think of other collaborations or partnerships or other people I should meet, I really appreciate the introductions. And almost everybody that I've had contact with has introduced me to somebody else, and it's awesome. So thank you.
All right, fabulous. And I see Carol did put something in the chat about trusts
I just wanted to mention that in the state of Washington, when you're working with your financial planners and you're looking at your estate planning, you can do a pet trust, and then you can make a gift as a designation to an organization like this as another tool. And the reason why it's important to have a pet trust is if you don't and you get sick and you're in the hospital, you can't bring your animal into the hospital to be with you unless you have a pet trust.
Interesting.
We have so many side projects that come up that, you know, we're trying to keep our mission focused, but, you know, eventually we would love to have volunteers that provide just fostering for people in an emergency situation themselves. So if somebody gets admitted to the hospital, what happens? You know, they live alone. What happened anyway? So
Yeah. Great. So thank you very much for taking this on, Sally, and your team, Dawn and everyone else. It's really, you know, you're doing it for everyone. So again, thank you. And it's you obviously have a team full of expertise, and so I'd love to see a vet join and someone with some more philanthropic background that, you know, is passionate about this. And who's not passionate about their pet?
thank you, Colleen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a good week.